we are live. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. I would like to welcome you to this session on the art of facilitation, the process facilitation model. I'd like to welcome Tian Eng, Dr. Alia, and Guat Ching. Thank you for joining us. And we've got another person joining us now, Peter Berthold, and also connecting with us is Ines from Brazil. And this session is part of our monthly meta coaching series. And when I say the meta coaching series, these sessions are built on the book written by Dr. Michael Hall, The Meta Coaching System. So if you want to have more detail, go to the book and you'll have more details. However, the purpose of my bringing the meta coaching system series is, one, to remind meta coaches about what the meta coaching system is all about. Two is to introduce the meta coaching system to those who are not familiar with this. So I'd like to welcome all of you today. Some of you are here for the first time, and there are others who have joined these sessions before. So whether you are a first timer or a regular, I bid you welcome, and I encourage you to interact in the discussions later. I'm Mazuki. I'm a neurosemantics trainer and meta coach. I help people to systematically develop skills in leading, communicating, and coaching to bring out the best in themselves, in yourself, and also in others. In the 60 to 90 minutes together, we'll be discussing on two major points. The first point is in two parts, the facilitation model. And the second main point is on the skills required for great coaching. I will pause for discussion after each main point, and this is to invite questions, comments, or contributions. And I know there are some of you who like to think out loud. So by all means, you are most welcome to do your thinking out loud during the short pauses. My style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our own silly human qualities. My purpose is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. So a quick introduction about the session we are having this evening. Firstly, coaching is facilitation. One of the 7 central things that defines coaching, yet it is not just any facilitation. Coaching involves a very special kind of facilitation process. Hence, one of our short definitions in meta coaching is this. Coaching as process facilitation mobilizes the internal and external resources of a client to an agreed upon outcome. Internal, referring to the internal powers of thinking, feeling. External, referring to the external powers of saying and doing. To be an excellent, highly trained and competent coach, you have to be able to effectively facilitate a client to discover his or her inner frames, develop a meta perspective to them, choose and make great decisions, create or suspend meanings, awaken to his possibilities, and unleash her highest and best values and visions. As a coach, it is not your job to get your client to his outcome. That's the client's job. The client has to do that. The coach's job is more focused, to facilitate the client to do the work of discovering, learning, and unleashing. The coach's role is to make the processes of change, learning, and unleashing as efficient and effective as possible. This includes eliminating interference, blocks, and limitations, and identifying the processes that govern a person's sense of self, sense of reality, and ability to choose one's highest goals. It is to work with many processes: communication, relating to others, meaning-making, measuring progress, embodying meaning, setting high intentions, unleashing potentials, changing and transforming, learning and unlearning, and so on. It is these processes of the client with which coaching facilitates. That is why, rather than having expertise in the content knowledge of the client or his area, the coach works at a higher, or what we call meta level. The coach's expertise lies in the facilitation process itself. And that is why a coach doesn't need to be an expert in this subject that the client is an expert in. The client is the star. The coach's expertise is in the facilitation process. So that's what we are covering as an introduction, a quick introduction. And now that I've stopped sharing that screen, I'd just like to again welcome all of you here. Tian Eng, Guat Ching, Dr. Alia, Peter, Ines from there, Christian, Tessie, Pierre, still in South Korea, I hope. Okay. And Dolores, thank you. I don't know how to pronounce that. Do I pronounce it Lach or Lache? Katzen? How do I pronounce your name?
Lache.
Lache. Thank you, Lache.
Thank you. Thank you, Marsupi.
And Dolores, thank you for joining us. Pumeza, I saw you earlier. Thank you for joining us. And Eloy, thank you for joining us. So just that quick introduction about the process facilitation. Yeah, so let me just pause there again to welcome you. And Peter, where are you calling us from?
From South Africa.
So from South Africa as well. So Christian, from South Africa, Lashe and Dolores, are you also from South Africa? Just guessing, yeah. And Pumeza, I know you're from South Africa.
Yes, I'm from South Africa, yes. Yeah.
And good morning to you, Ines. Wonderful to see you early morning in Brazil.
Good morning, everybody.
The room full of South Africans.
Okay, and Dolores, I'm on energy load shedding, so my video will be off most of the time. Thank you for letting us know. So let us move to the first point, that is the process. Right, so moving to the first point, which is the facilitation model. So the facilitation model, I'm going to cover it in two parts because it's quite lengthy. So the first part of the facilitation model, to conceptualize facilitation as a model and to identify the skill set of competencies within facilitation, we use the meaning performance axis. Those of you who have gone through meta coaching and neurosemantics, you may be well aware of the meaning performance axis. These axes were developed in designing the self-actualization quadrants in 2005. With the meaning performance structure, we ask the following questions. What do clients want from their coach and from the coaching experience? What makes coaching valuable? Why do people invest in it? Using numerous years of training and supervising in coaching, Michael, I'm referring to Dr. Michael Hall, identified the answers that he heard hundreds of times from clients. Two main answers. One, I want to be understood, heard, and cared for. So that's the first answer. The second answer is, I want to be stretched, motivated, inspired, and challenged. So for the first type of answer, I want to be understood, heard, and cared for, the coach satisfies the meaning of the coaching for the client by being compassionately caring, understanding, hearing, and supporting the client. So that covers the first part of wanting to be understood and heard and cared for. The second one, I want to be stretched, motivated, inspired, and challenged. The coach satisfies the performance the client wants by being challengingly provocative, pushing, stretching, firm, and active. To complete the model, we put compassion on the meaning axis and challenging on the performance axis. With that, we had an operational definition of facilitation. Facilitation, a function of support and challenge, is the synergy that converges when we have relational responsiveness to people as persons and an inspirational stretching to take responsible action. With support and challenge on the meaning performance axis, we see that a coach's skill of facilitating involves creating a special relationship wherein one holds the space of safety and care in order to challenge the client to be all that he or she can be. So, on the meaning axis, we measure the quality of meaning and the meaningfulness of the coaching to the client. We ask the question, how does the client experience the coaching? Is the coach and the coaching caring and compassionate? The discovery here is that the more meaningful, the more human, warm, caring, responsive, safe, enabling, knowledgeable the coach and the coaching is to the client, the more meaningful will be the coaching and the more effective the facilitation. The client will then allow the coach to challenge and respond positively to the challenge. So on the meaning axis, what the coach is doing is facilitating with compassion, with care and nurturing. And this requires the skill of, later on we will be going into the skills in more detail, the skills of listening, supporting, and receiving feedback. So that's on the meaning axis. On the performance axis, we measure the kind and quality of the performances which the coach and the coaching enables and facilitates the client. The coach does this by inspiring, challenging, and stretching and evoking the highest and best in the client. The objective is for the client to identify, set, and effectively reach his goals. The result of these two axes are 4 quadrants. Yeah? Because what is happening in the meaning performance axis, we are bringing the clients, inducing the state of success. So what we do as a coach in the facilitation process is to have that care, to be present for the client, to be curious, learning, openness, authenticity, intention, decision, and responsibility. Through those roles that we play, we are guiding the client so to speak, supporting the client to achieve their desired outcome by inducing the right states. Now, the result of these two axes are 4 quadrants. 2 axes are 4 ways that a client can experience you as a coach and your coaching. So how do you want your clients to experience you? Only one of these quadrants will enable you to engage in effective coaching. In quadrant 1, notice lower meaning and also lower performance. So low meaning, low performance. The coach and the coaching here is non-responsive and inactive. Here there is insufficient support for sense of safety and care and insufficient challenge for action. The client senses the person doesn't care about me and isn't doing anything to help me change or unleash my potentials. You call this coaching? So that's what's happening in the first quadrant. Now, the second quadrant here is low meaning, high performance. The coach and the coaching is here highly challenging and directive. Here there is either too much pushing or the challenge comes too quickly, so that a person feels stress, pressure, under scrutiny, or under orders to produce. The client senses, my coach is a top drill sergeant. Coaching is all work and no fun. Why would anyone in his right mind sign up for this? So that's in the second quadrant. Moving to the quadrant, high meaning low performance, quadrant 3, the coach and the coaching here is caring, supportive, motherly or fatherly, and gentle. Here there is plentiful support, so the person feels cared for and validated, but it is too much. The coach does not urge the client to take any action or responsibility or to believe in himself. The client senses, my coach is wonderful, but nothing ever happens. It's a wonderful thought feast, but without any results. I'd like my money back. But my coach is so nice, I hate to ask for my money back. I don't want to hurt her feelings. So that's at quadrant 3. Now moving to quadrant 4, high level meaning with high performance. The coach and coaching here is synergistic, so that high meaning and best performance come together in a convergence. Here there is supportive challenge in just the right combination and mixture. Here there is an optimal balance of support and challenge, compassionate challenge, ruthlessly compassionate. The client now senses, sometimes I really get out of my comfort zone and feel really challenged, but I always feel totally supported and cared for. And then I get some fantastic results. Everybody ought to have a coach. So those are the 4 quadrants. So as a coach, what we are doing is we are facilitating the client's journey, moving from quadrant 1, 2, or 3, bringing them to quadrant 4, where they are actualizing their dreams, their visions, their highest potential. Okay, so let me just pause there and invite questions and comments from everyone.
Mazuki, Ines.
Yes, Ines.
How would be the best way to measure this, where we are as coach? How is it asking to the client, how can I measure this, to know if I am in the in the way of the synergy. Sometimes I don't know how to calibrate this.
Thank you for asking that question, because I've never thought about that question. However, the first answer that comes to mind is when I work with a client at every session, I would ask the client for feedback regarding the coaching. Yeah. So I ask the client, so how did that session work for you? Were there any questions that you preferred me to ask that I did not? Yeah, and good that you asked that question, because it revealed to me that my asking for feedback so far has been rather general. So when you ask that question, the thought that comes to mind is that, Marzuki, you need to be more specific, because the client may not be familiar with the facilitative process, and therefore the client may not be able to answer me to me specifically. So I really appreciate your asking that question, because it revealed to me that, hey, I need to be more specific when I ask that. It has been a habit for me to ask, so what's your feedback about the coaching? And for me to be more specific about what goals that they have achieved during the coach session. What did I not ask that would have created difference for them? So those might be my my blind side. Yeah. So yeah, for me that would be useful. Thank you, Ines, for asking that question. Anybody else has got some addition to that? Christian, go ahead.
Yes. So what I've done before is I've explained for a client and I've drawn, like, for example, I just did here, like I draw the, my camera is blurring, but anyway, I draw the quadrants for him, I explain them for him, and then I give them the pen and paper and say, okay, tell me where you are.
Oh.
And then they show me, and then I say, okay, where do you want to be? And then it becomes a dance with the change model, because then it's like, okay, so what do we need to work on? What are the steps and stages? And then you just dance between the two, between the quadrants, because someone might be more in Q3 or someone might be more in Q2. And rarely I've had someone that's in Q1, because if they want to be coached, they usually they dream too much, they don't do anything, or they take so much action, but they don't have any meaning. They're sad, they're depressed. So it's usually like, okay, so you want more meaning. And then you, like I said, with the change model, you flow with this as a dance with it. Like, okay, so what are the steps you've taken? You pay space first. So what are the steps you're taking? Are these the exact things? Is this especially in your workplace? Is this somewhere else? And then, okay, so have you ever given meaning before to this? So like, have you done this before? If yes, what is that? Etc. etc. So that's something that I've always done, and it worked. It always works, because then the client takes the responsibility of like, okay, I'm unhappy, I don't have any meaning, or I have all these ideas, but I don't know. And then it's like, but I want to be here. Okay, and then as coach, we said we facilitate to be more efficient and effective. So then you help facilitate while he's in the driver's seat. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that, Christian. I learned from that, and I will be taking that. I'll be borrowing that from you. However, this time when I borrow it, I'm not going to give it back. Just kidding.
You're renting it. You're renting it.
Thank you, Christian. Wonderful. Right. Yes. Anyone else has got any other thoughts and ideas?
Marzuki.
Yes.
In your first chart number 1, you have these 4 quadrants, and then you have this bar that goes to inducing state.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say more about, you know, what states and how you connect that to the meaning and performance?
Yeah, let me just bring up that chart again. Yes. Yeah. So that's this inducing state there. That's the state of the outcome, the coaching outcome. So at the beginning of the coaching session, we ask the question, what is it that you want? So that's the outcome. So, so to induce them into the state of achieving that outcome. So that's where the coaching facilitation comes in. And
Do you do that? Do you do that from start to finish, or do you do that when you are close to the well-formed outcome? You start as soon as you start coaching, do you start inducing the state?
So when we are having the well-formed outcome conversation, so that's when the inducing state of the outcome comes in. So because there are different states, whether they are in the desired state or the current state. So inducing state, there is the inducing the state of the desired state. So what is the state that they want to be in?
So it's pretty much throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking that.
Can I just take a snapshot of this slide?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
I think, could we also say that instead of saying, I know we use the word inducing state, but you could also say facilitating the state.
Yeah.
Yes.
Facilitating the desired state.
Yes, facilitating the state. At the same time, we deliberately use the word inducing state because that is one of the skills that a coach needs to have. The skill of getting the client into that state is a process that that we have. So in the
I think for me there's a little bit of a difference also, because what I want to do is I want to facilitate the client to achieve that state, that desired outcome state. And in the process of coaching, in the process of doing this facilitation called coaching, I will be inducing different states.
Yeah.
So for me, almost the right-hand quadrant that you have there on the top is the final state or the outcome state. It's the facilitated outcome state. And in the process, there might be more than one inducing of different states.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Tessie, you wanted to say something?
No, I agree. I think that's it's a process, and there could be more and more states, or it could be meta states.
Yes, because as we move along the axis of change, people are accessing different states as they are going through that. At the same time, the state induction in quadrant 4 is about helping them to gain that that creative tension, so that they can continually go back to that state, because this is where I want to be and this is where I am now. That creates that creative tension, that creates that discomfort. Yeah. So as we go through the process, as what Peter mentioned, yes, throughout the process, we'll be experiencing many different states. However, we want to keep getting them to recognize that that's where I want to be. So if the gap is still very big, then there's that frustration. I am not there yet. That creates that creative tension of moving. So that's where that care, presence, curiosity, learning, openness, authenticity, all of those comes in, because it helps the client to manage all of the different states so that they can go to where they want to go.
So if the coach is if the coach has the job of inducing the desired state, then we have to be careful what states the clients are bringing up, because we want to either texture states to get to the desired state, or we want to induce the state and solidify the state by asking what you believe about that, what meaning you give to that, what are your intentions around that, so that we build a solid state of desire or the desired state, rather than having a lot of states that don't actually bring us to the outcome.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Christian.
Mazuki, so I have an opinion about this, and stop me at any time if I'm wrong, but I think a good distinction to ask is when the person starts going to the self-actualization quadrant, the inducing state that we want, I think the question should be asked, is this now becoming something the person just does? Like, is it doing? Or is it now becoming who the person is, an identity? Because if you check from the way beginning, from the Q1, the Q2, K3, and you look at it from the well-formed outcome, for example, like that inducing state question number 2, what would it look like if you've had this? You start going from the meta program be, do, have, where most people will show up with the have, do, be. It's like, if I have this, then I can do this and I can be this way. Well, if the person starts going from, okay, so imagine you were curious, you were patient, you were caring, you had meaning in everything you've ever seen before. Every day you wake up with a smile. You can't wait to start working. What would that look like? And then you induce it, and that's going, okay, so if you feel this every day, what is it you're doing? What is it you have? And then asking from that state, then what you said, Tesi Lim, sorry, that like the beliefs that will support that identity. Because I think when you go to self-actualization, you don't want it to be like, oh, I just self-actualized.
Yeah.
Like if you can get to that point, hallelujah, because that being able to say with less emotion that it just is that way is stronger than overloading it. But before that, it's going to go from I do this to I am this.
Yeah.
So, and you want to start by moving that block to I am.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Christian. Yeah. Right. So shall we move on to the next point, which is the second point on the facilitation model? The theory in coaching is that we bring out a person's inner resources by facilitating the innate processes in the person for clarity, understanding, decision, growth, personal development. So in coaching, we do not tell, lecture, give advice, or give interpretations. The client has an inner self-actualization drive and only needs the right conditions to unleash her potentials. The processes to make this happen include dialogue, questioning, enabling, empowering, equipping, challenging, inviting awareness, framing, and so on. The purpose of this is to make the person's desired personal development occur with greater ease and speed. To be able to do this, the coach will identify the content of the client's objectives and then step back to observe it from various perspectives in order to see the structure and processes involved. Then, what are the essential processes that we facilitate in the coaching process? Here they are. 1, communication, precision and clarity, induction and embodiment. So that's the first essential process. The second one is meaning making, construction, suspension, enrichment, and ecology of meaning. In the last session, last week, we explore into the infinite value meaning. That boggles my mind. Kozipski mentioned about infinite value meaning to facilitate that the meaning making is rich for the client in order for the client to be able to achieve his or her goals. The third one is benchmarking intangibles, scaling and measuring, because the clients want to move from point A to point B, and what they want to achieve, some of them are considered as intangible. So how do we benchmark those? Fourth one is relating. This relates to trust, connection, rapport building, openness, and transparency. Number 5 here is changing, multiple levels, the behavior, person, direction, the dimensions of change, kinds of change. Number 6 here is self-actualization, identifying, developing, and unleashing of potentials. Number 7 is learning and unlearning. I give a, because there is a lot for me to unlearn as well at this age. Number 8 is modeling the structure of expertise, pattern detection, unpacking of structure, noting and enhancing the strategy process. I've come multiple incidences whereby knowing a client has expertise in one area, and because they are discounting the abilities in another area, to bring back the client to the area of expertise, to model that in order to bring greater performance in the area that they are discounting their abilities. So that's modeling the structure of expertise. Number 9 is creativity, inventing plans and strategies, innovating. And number 10 is problem defining and problem solving. When I attended self-actualization psychology, one of the things that blew my mind was people talk about well-formed outcome statement. We would, in self-actualization psychology, we have this so-called well-formed problem statement. And the reason why we cannot solve some of our problems is that our problems are too ill-formed and we cannot get a handle on it. So that's why we couldn't solve them. So these are the 10 essential processes that we facilitate in the coaching process. The skill of facilitating involves examining the processes and content of a person's experience by exploring and identifying what's happening, identifying the steps in the process, and providing a step-by-step set of instruction so a person can actualize his or her goals and values. In this activity, to coach also identifies and eliminates interferences, which blocks or slows down the client's objectives or makes them more convoluted. Now, the interferences are mainly in the frames. As we frequently say, the problem are in the frames, not in the person, not in the event out there. The problems are in the frames. So the interferences, the blockages are there in the frames. So for us to run that process through to clear those. Now, what are the sub-skills for facilitation? One is identify a process and articulate its primary design and objective. Second is specify the steps required to fulfill the process. Third is to sequence the steps into the most time and energy efficient strategy. Fourth sub-skill is to identify potential blocks and interference to actualizing the strategy. Step number 5 is recognize when and where ideas and experiences which can block and interfere may occur. Then to specify the interference. Number 6 is identify one or more resource responses to get a person through the blocking or interfering experience. 7, use transition words, phrases, and stages to move the person smoothly through the steps. Examples: and, then, as, therefore. So this is where the linguistics come in to our coaching. 8 is verbally match the person's beliefs and values frames. 9, elicit higher frames as resources for giving new inspiration and vitality. And 10, support the person by matching, validating, empathizing, and so on. So these are the sub-skills that will help us to bring the person or facilitate the person from where they are to where they want to go. So without these sub-skills, then that facilitation process is all that more problematic for us. So let me pause here. So those are the 2 parts in the facilitation process that I would like to, that I'm bringing you this evening. So questions or comments? Yes, Christian.
Mazuki, at number 6, identify one or more resource response. What does it mean by resource response to help a client move through their obstacles?
So
could you elaborate on that?
What I understand for it is resource refers to our saying, doing. So we are referring to what are the things that we can say, do in order to overcome those. So as I mentioned, part of the resource response could be, now I'm borrowing from what we were discussing last week, could be just to have that multiple valued meaning. And sometimes that when we, people, when they get stuck with one meaning about a subject, and that's how they imprison themselves. They imprison themselves in the meaning. Now, when they are able to generate more meanings, that allows them to have more flexibility in order to overcome the obstacle. Because now, instead of having having to solve a problem that is caused by one fixed meaning, now they have many meanings about that particular thing. It could be just solving a small problem here that can help to eliminate whatever issue that they are facing. So that's how I understand that. Make sense?
Okay. Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Pierre, you've been quiet. Right. So shall we move on to the next point, which is the skills required for great coaching. There we go. So what are the skills required? First thing, coming from Michael, not everyone can coach. Why? Just like not everyone can fly an aeroplane, not everyone can drive a truck with a 40-foot trailer at the end. Why? Because each of those requires skills. So that's why we say not everyone can coach. Coaching, like any other field or discipline, not only involves a theoretical framework, but also a skill set. A set of skills for the basic competencies within the coaching process. Those who attempt to coach without these basic skills will not succeed when working with a client and may actually do harm. After all, if the processes for awareness, change, and development are powerful enough to transform a person's life to create wonderful changes, they are also powerful enough for harm when misused or misdirected. The same mechanisms in the hands of the incompetent or the unethical could create hellish results. So using this realization in meta coaching about coaching skills has led us to raise the following questions. First question is, what are the critical skills for coaching effectively? Second one, what are the essential skills for facilitating change? And a third question is, what are additional and or advanced skills for coaching? Yeah. So what I would like to do is that I would like to quickly go through the first one, which is the 7 core skills of coaching. And those of you who've attended Coaching Mastery, you will be very familiar with this skill. Yeah. So I will not go into detail about the skills, just to inform the 7 core coaching skills. The first coaching skill, this relates to relationships. It's about relationships. So the first skill is the skill of listening, active and attentive. Active and focused listening involves a full mind-body listening so that we can listen with the third ear to both content and structure, to what is said as well as to what's not being said. So that's the first skill. Listening for heart, the values, for emotion, the visions and loves, for meta levels of awareness. So that's the first skill. In the category of relationships as well, the second skill is the skill of support. This is about rapport and presence. Support refers to being present, showing up for the client, and stepping into the moment with the client. This establishes an I-you relationship. It is being present to the client's emotions without trying to do anything with regard to them. So how do you support another? What are the sensory specific aspects that conveys support? So that's the second skill. The third skill relates to exploration, and this is the skill of questioning. Questioning, precision. So the ability to ask fabulous and powerful questions describes the central coaching approach. You coach best by asking questions. You explore to get the heart of things, to open up new possibilities, to open doors in the matrix, to influence the direction of thinking in a powerful and profound way, and to focus in a solution-oriented way on facilitating the client's processes. This is the heart of coaching. This exploration asks and responds without judgment or imposing what the coach wants. Asking question, expecting the client to give an expected answer is not the questioning we are referring to here. Okay. Now, the next skill is meta questioning. This refers to in-depth probing, moving from questions about the outer game and one's immediate thoughts and feelings. As a coach, you then move inside to explore the frames, states, and experiences about the client's inner experiences. And now we are moving meta. These are up and in questions and deal with structure. Meta questions, by exploring the frame structure of the inner game, enable the clients to wake up and to explore the matrix. These meta questions direct the client to step back into a higher awareness about beliefs, values, identity, intentions, and so on. Next skill relates to mirroring, the skill of receiving feedback, and this involves calibrating. Consider how a mirror receives information immediately, non-intrusively, and openly. It receives everything and holds it for reflection. So treat everything the client says and does as a gift. There's no need to fight it. That's not the role of the coach. Simply receive and reflect back to the person. In this, you become a living human mirror to your client. Ideally, a clean and undistorted mirror. How does the mirror get dirty? When it gets contaminated with the coach's frames, beliefs, understanding. So this is what Michael referred to as sacred listening. When you are listening from the state of understanding, and you are cleanly feeding back the client the information that the client is giving to you. So like a mirror that is clean and untarnished. Next skill is the skill of giving feedback from sensory specifics. Continuing the metaphor of a mirror, giving feedback is a matter of simply reflecting back what you have received. Giving feedback is not giving a judgment of your opinion. It is being a human mirror, reflecting empirical see, hear, feel information, so the client can see himself and how he comes across in your perspective. To give such high quality feedback, use as precise language as possible. And these are sensory-based language, but what you see, hear, and feel. Because immediacy makes this feedback extremely useful, give sensory-based feedback as soon as possible. Do this directly with consideration of context, with rapport, and with support. Then the skill number 7 relates to experiential coaching. So inducing states, embodying the states. Eliciting a state refers to inviting or evoking a mind, body, emotional experience. Call it forth or even provoke it by suggesting it, asking questions about it, reflecting on it. Then you can anchor it. Doing this consciously with a client gives her a state management skill that she can use for herself. Then you can amplify, interrupt, design and redesign and take charge of the state. Eliciting state also involves skills of trance induction. So the client goes inside and accesses the best imagined states. So these are the 7 core coaching skills. From those 7, there are more. Yeah. So those are the first 7 skills, the essential ones, essential to create the basic format of a coaching conversation. So those are the 7 that we get benchmarked. I hope I'm not traumatizing any meta coaches here, because in coaching mastery, the moment the word benchmark is said, everybody goes. So those are the 7 core skills that we get benchmarked at Coaching Mastery. Now there are more. Yeah. While this list of more are advanced skills, they are equally important in creating an engaging coaching conversation, which gets to the heart of things. The skills that I'm going to reveal in a moment depends upon the core skills and extend them to give you the ability to detect the hidden structures within the dialogue and manage the process that will more expertly facilitate the client's resources and insights. These skills define and describe how to effectively facilitate the coaching conversation. And these skills are taught, the first 7 skills are taught at the Coaching Mastery, the ACMC level, yet at the next level, the PCMC skill, these are the skills that we are benchmarked on. One is framing and reframing. So this is considered as an advanced coaching skill. And the second one is pattern detection, to detect patterns, thinking patterns that the client goes through, and to present that to the client and to be able to utilize in the coaching process to help the client move faster and more easily. And the third skill is the skill of challenging, to bring the client to higher levels of performances. Okay, so those are the coaching, the skills required for great coaching, the 7 core skills of coaching, and with 3 additional coaching skills. So let me just stop share there and invite any questions or comments from any one of you.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the pattern, determining the pattern?
Pattern detection. Yeah. Pattern detection, the primary one, pattern detection is coaching to the client's meta programs, detecting the client's meta programs and coaching them according to that meta program that brings in greater rapport, and at the same time helping the client to move more easily because they are using their default meta programs. At the same time, noticing that if they are too rigid on any rigid, I'm referring to when people have limited range in their meta program, then they become rigid. So to be able to coach that so that they can expand their operation. So that's what we are referring to, pattern detection, the thinking processes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any thoughts, comments?
I always say we learn these skills and then the client doesn't follow the script. I always get a little bit flustered when you learn them so structured in such a structured manner, and then you go into a session and then the client's all over the place, so much drama, and you have to be in charge of the structure. It takes a lot of presence.
Yes, Tessie, the insight that I get when you mention that is that we bring the processes, as what you say, the structure, However, the agenda is the client's agenda. We are there to serve the agenda because over the week, I was having a conversation with, she's a therapist. All these years, she's being a therapist. And then she decides to coach. So she started to learn how to coach. And one of the things that she said was that she felt really, she doesn't feel grounded in a coaching conversation because she's not in control of the conversation. And what I said to her is that absolutely, in a coaching conversation, the client decides on where the client wants to go. So this is what we are referring to follow the client's energy. However, in a therapy situation, you don't follow the client because the client is hurt, the client is unwell. The therapist needs to decide the agenda. The client has to give the consent to the therapist. This is what we call reparenting. So that's the difference between therapy and the other professions. The profession of coaching, consulting, teaching, training, mentoring. We are dealing with people whose psychologies are healthy and well. So what we do is we follow the energies. It's just that we bring in the structure of change to facilitate, to make it easy for them to change. However, they are the ones who decide the agenda because they are healthy. Now, that's why Michael said that when he discussed about the 4 quadrants, asking the question, when should a coach become a consultant? When should a coach become a mentor? And when it comes to the point, when should a coach become a therapist? In capital letters, never.
There was once somebody, a client was saying, I feel like I'm not good enough. And so I go, so what if that was true? So what do you believe about not being good enough? And she says, nobody will want to be with me. And I say, okay, so what happens then? Nobody wants to be with me. And then she says, I feel powerless. So what do you make that mean? And I'll never be able to live the life that I want. So you go up the meaning matrix, the ladder, and then you are able to do that pattern detection that you spoke about, because the meta program is I'm others referent, I'm not self-referent. I give my power away because I don't own my thoughts and my feelings. Everybody decides what I have to feel. So how small can that make me feel? And then the mirroring of, do you realize that you're doing this to yourself because this is all structures and makeup in your head. You're not really being judged, but you make that mean as though others are looking upon you as though you are less than. So unpacking the structure of her meaning making gets her to take her power back. And then from that plane, that space of, okay, now where do you want to go from here? Because do you realize that it's all meaning matrices in there? Nothing is actually out there. So if you have the power to own your thoughts and feelings, then you need to say meta no to that. And what do you want instead? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So at that point, I thought that I was a little bit of a therapist, because I'm saying like, so you're not good enough, you feel small, and exploring what the client made up in her mind about, I'm not good enough and I feel small and nobody wants to be with me and I'll never be able to live the life that I want. blah, blah, and let her, make a picture of it, her VAK of that, and then tell her that, hey, do you know that you're doing it all to yourself? And then that was a little bit of, I felt a little bit like a therapist, but then I had to mirror it back to her and say, look, you have the power to change all these meanings and make more enriching, empowering, robust meanings about yourself, because just future pace that. And how many more years do you want to live like this? Right? So I think the pattern detection was, the thing that I thought pivoted the whole conversation is you need to take charge of your power. You know that you are doing this to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then if I did the semantic space, how do you hold this very foreboding image of other people judging you? It's like, oh, it's so close. I said, wait, do you want to move it a little bit further, please? You can do that, you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was like a little bit bordering on therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for me, in therapy, the therapist needs to tell the client. So the therapist is the one who say, that's unhealthy, that's not working for you, because the client's map is broken and they need to be reparented the way that parents say to children, this is safe, this is unsafe. So that's what therapist does. And
but the mirroring made her go like, what are you doing to me? Why are you showing me that I'm so weak? I said, no, I'm actually just a mirror. I mean, this is what you're doing. You're doing it to yourself,
Yeah, so that's a very great point, because a person who's healthy being mirrored in that way, say, no, I don't want that. Yeah, a person who is psychologically unhealthy, when being mirrored in that way, they become worse.
Yeah.
So that's why a therapist shouldn't do that. So let therapists do their work. Coaches do our work in a different way.
So instead of saying, no, you're not weak, I say, yeah, so tell me more. Tell me more of what this weakness is doing to your life. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And then she goes like, what are you doing to me? I'm not doing anything. You're doing it all to yourself.
Do you stretch the timeline another 20 years?
Oh my God. Yeah. What? 3 years from now, I'm doing this? Meta no.
Right. Thank you. Let's see. Yes. Go ahead, Peter.
I can't really remember, but do we in meta coaching sometimes use projecting into the future as a method of inducing a state, or also just facilitating the customer to a desired state? In other words, sort of inducing the client to go to their older, wiser self. And from that position of an older, wiser self, which would maybe 80 years old or whatever, with lots of wisdom and insight and knowledge of their lives and so on, to look back and what advice they would be able to give themselves. I can't remember if we had a specific process like that.
Timeline therapy?
In motivation?
Yeah. Yes, as what Tessie said, in timeline, we do that.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Not so much meta coaching, but it's an NLP strategy, isn't it?
Yes.
It's Gestalt therapy.
Oh.
So coaching is built out of one of the coaching schools, not coaching, psychology schools, and one of them are Gestalt coaching. So Gestalt coaching would be, for example, giving your maybe emotions, meanings, and literal figural identity of some sorts, like a color or a human factor, for example, because now you're putting like, okay, let's imagine your future self. So your state inducing in front of you, a 10-year, 20 or 30, 40 year, everything's worked out. They're wiser beyond your years. They know exactly what to do. And you're sitting there in front of them. What's the one thing they tell you that you can take away? Like, that's the start. You put that in front. And the other thing is with the inducing state, the second you go from backward or even forward, it's from the motivation axis. So it's away from towards. Like, you're building motivation. Like, is that something you want? Yes, I want more. Is that what do you want still this? No, I don't want that anymore. So you're building, you're inducing instead of like a meta no, like Tessie said earlier, like, no, I don't want this. I don't in 30 years be like this. Not a chance. Like, no. Okay. So now we have a away from. So what will be the new towards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nice.
And another question is, how do we in meta coaching, because I did ACMC many years ago, how do we facilitate for a client to grasp their personal greatness, to grasp their personal genius, their personal greatness, their true essence, that which they were created with, that which if you want to be taken from a spiritual perspective, that which God deposited in them for their greatness to become in life. How do we take a client to that true essence, to that personal genius and personal greatness?
I would use the meta-stating self pattern. I would use the meta-stating self pattern, the acceptance, appreciation, and awe. So you get them to access a state of awe. Perhaps you imagine a sunset is so awesome, or the waves of Hawaii, and people are, what do you call those? Water skiing, is it? With the board, what do you call that? And it's
Surfing.
awesome. Yeah.
Surfing.
Surfing, yeah. And it's awesome how they ride those waves and they go in between the waves. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And then you get them to apply that to themselves as a human being. Get them to feel that sense of awe that, as a human being, first you get them to access that state of awe from a sunset, from the surfing, and then you get them to apply that to themselves as a human being. And look, your heart is beating, you're not doing anything, you're breathing, and your blood is flowing, and there's circulation. And look at you from a poppy seed, you've become this human being, and this amazing, God creation. So it starts with acceptance, appreciation, and awe. I would use that pattern. What do you think, Marzuki?
Yes, I agree with that, and also what Christian has put into the communicated to me just now. It's in the chat box. The first part of the APG program, the first theme is called empowerment. So Peter, going to your question, when you say how do we bring that to a person in terms of process. So the first part is metastating awareness and ownership of powers, metastating self, what Tessie was describing just now, metastating confirmation and disconfirmation for belief change, and the fourth one is metastating pleasure for joyfulness in the genius state. So the four patterns are about empowering a person. Now, with respect to the content, those are processes. Now, with respect to the content, then probably we want to be able to approach the client from their values to understand that. For example, when I'm referring to content, when a person wants to accept and be in awe of self. Yes, you can bring in the state. At the same time, having certain content allows a person to have greater appreciation. So in that case, depending on the client's belief system and value system, bringing in the content that allows them to achieve that. For example, if the person's value system is based on science, based on research, then probably you can bring in the content of people like Stephen Covey, who talks about the birth gifts, understanding the gift of intelligence, the gift of freedom to choose. So bringing from those perspectives. If the client's value system is from a religion, and you are familiar with that religious beliefs, so you can also bring the content from that, respectfully bring from the client's belief system in order for them to have an appreciation. However, from the process perspective, we have the 4 patterns of empowerment in APG. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Peter?
Yeah, it does. It does answer the question. I was just, I recently had an experience where, somebody used a picture of when you were like 2 or 3 years old, and then, focusing intently on this picture and almost meditating on this picture, what do you see in that picture? Obviously, the picture of yourself when you were 2 or 3 years old. So, what are all the great and the good things that you're seeing in this picture of this little human being? And it's actually quite amazing how much real tangible content comes out of that discussion, because that which was then when you were 2 or 3 or 4 years old is still the same. It hasn't changed. Okay, so that's still exactly who you are, but now you've lived for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, and life has happened, and life has impacted and influenced, and a lot of that awesome greatness and goodness and what we call personal genius or personal greatness, a lot of that has been contaminated. Yes. But it doesn't mean it's not there. It's still there. Yeah. It's like, if you plant a fig tree, you might graft something else into the fig tree and graft a different tree into the fig tree, but the root of the fig tree still remains the root of a fig tree forever until it dies.
Yes, I love that.
So if a person could really get somebody to understand what their true essence is, who they really are, and were meant to be, and were born to be, and were created, and were formed to be. That is also a source, another source that you can use to induce that desired state or the desired outcome.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's beautifully said.
I
Peter.
love that. I just love that, Peter.
I love that very much. Yeah. So on Tuesday in the framers group, in the neurosemantics trainers group, I mentioned about this, that one of the quotations from Abraham Maslow was, I'd like to think of the self-actualizing person not as somebody with things added, but someone with nothing taken away. So
Exactly.
Peter, when you said that, when you it is a way for you to remind a person, it's just that as you grew up, certain of your powers were taken away from you, so to speak, because you were not allowed to use those powers, and because of that, we are diminished in our operations. It's just that even though we are diminished in our operations now, we can reclaim those powers. So that's what APG and LPG is all about, to be able to reclaim those powers. And I use the word reclaim because it is not gone. You can get it back because you were born with that. And to remind people that you are born with all of those. It's just that somehow our parents, because of ignorance or whatsoever, we did not learn how to bring this out. And I'm so glad that we have those processes in order to be able to bring this out. So thank you, Peter, for giving that perspective. I love that perspective about the tree. No matter what you graft, the roots are there from the original. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, anyone has got any other points to bring up? We are fast approaching half the hour already. So, I've covered the points that I would like to bring to you, and I'm so glad to be able to bring to our discussion this evening. And coming to a close, I would like to invite each and every one of you. What is your takeaway for this session? So what's the one thing that stood out for you? So if you don't mind, allow me to just go through from the bottom of my screen over here. Lashe, what's your takeaway for today?
Man. Sorry.
Are you able to access your mic?
Thanks. Sorry, I'm having some problems here, but anyway, I think so much has been shared on this in this session. I don't have a specific takeaway, but I think I have a deeper appreciation for coaching being a real art of facilitation, and having to have the skill and the flexibility and the adaptability to draw from so much to offer your client a good coaching session. That's what's foremost in my mind.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. I'd like to move to Pumeza. Go ahead. Are you able to access your mic? No? In that case, I'll move on to Eloy. Aloysius? No? Thank you. Pierre, go ahead.
For me, it was specificity. Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning with giving feedback to, or asking for feedback from your client, where you could be more specific. And Christian gave his helpful diagram. And for me, that just a little light went on in with not only during the coaching session, But also before that, because it's a session with intent, we want this person to bring value out of it. So now that we're shining light of where are you on this diagram, we're pointing them in a direction. And that also, it kind of brings us both together. I have a responsibility as a coach and you as a coachee. And that's why specificity is important, I would say.
Wow. Thank you, Pierre, for that. Tessie, go ahead.
Thanks for today's session, Marzuki. I think the takeaway is that this group is forming really nicely and I get to hear perspective. So that was a real gift, Peter and Christian, and hearing from everyone else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tessie. Ines, you're next.
My takeaway usually is always related to being here, to have this experience with you and to learn with you all. Because coaching is about practicing for being more, to reach the mastery, we need to practice. And as I see you guys telling stories, it's about your practice. So it's your examples, your experience. So it enriches me. So, and I have this kind of thinking that everything I learned here, I don't have the specifics now to give to you, but it's like pieces of a puzzle. And then in my mind, it will settle down better my knowledge until now. And this helps me a lot. So thank you so much for being this facilitator in this group, Mazuki. It's very, very important. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing also your experiences and your thoughts.
Thank you, Ines. Appreciate that. Christian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mazuki. So building on what Ines, Tessie, and everyone has said before, this is an awesome group. And I thank everyone here and also you, Mazuki, for facilitating presentations. So that was awesome. And so my two takeaways is in prison and meaning. I've never heard someone say it that way. And I knew about it, I've never thought of it that way. And it's so true, in prison and meaning. And the reason for me it stands out is because I remember it was the mid-up program philosophizing, for example, the what, the why and the how. You can keep adding meaning, it's infinite, but at what point do you stop? And I think that's when you become in prison and meaning. So that's for me really big. And then another one was, how does a mirror become contaminated? Because it really, I was like, oh, wow, that's how it makes sense, because a mirror is just there. There's nothing like the mirror tells you, hey, this is like this, that. It's you clogging up the image. So that's a beautiful example. How does a mirror get contaminated and how it's clear. It's not damaged or something. So I love that. So thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Appreciate that. Next, Thian Ng, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I like to thank Mazuki. And in fact, if I look at the way he speaks and his facial expression, and this is something which I learned a lot. The way you express yourself, if I were your patient or your client, I would love you so much. And when I like you, I think there's a very good chance of being convinced by you. Thank you very much for being, your facial expression being so good and a very systematic way of conducting this talk. Yeah, I appreciate the young man, Christian. You show so much confidence and got so many stuff to share, very practical. And I presume that you're very, very young. You seem to be over matured for your look. I'm glad I'm with a lot of you and picking up many points. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thian. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, it's nothing specific, but I think the overall thing for me is that as coaches, we are there to serve. and to serve with love and compassion and empathy. And I think it's extremely important that I make sure that I'm well equipped to be able to effectively use my empathy and my love and my affection to be able to help people to get to their desired outcome. I realize, when we go through all this stuff and so on, that I'm a little bit rusty on some of the concepts. So I need to really brush up a little bit on the technical nitty-gritty of it, because there's a lot of value in that. So for me, just listening, and also listening to Christian, how and Tessie as well, how these concepts are like front of their mind, and that means that they can apply them, and that means that they can serve their clients professionally, and reach those desired outcomes without causing damage to their clients. So yeah, I think that was, and I also really appreciate your facilitation, Mazuki, as Tian said. Now it's really delightful to experience your body language and your facilitation skills. So thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for everybody. It's my first time on this group, and hopefully not my last time.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And last but not least, Dr. Alia, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my biggest insight in today's seminar, I think it's about not everyone can coach, because I'm a totally new coach and I'm not certified yet. But I have several clients with me, and I've been learning from courses. And today, my biggest insight would be like the possibility that if I don't equip myself with enough learning, theoretical learning, and practice the skills, I may also cause damage to the clients. And this, yeah, it's kind of like opening my mind, and I should do something about that and be more careful. And yeah, this is my first time joining here, and I think this is a good place that I can get more information and learning from others too, from the sharing that other coaches have shared just now. Yeah, I learned a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your being here this evening. So before we end, allow me to share with you some events coming up. And if you notice, I've also sent in the chat box the personal genius, what do you call them, patterns. Now, announcements. One is that I've been running this Leadership Foundation program, the Neurosemantics basic program. It consists of Coaching Essential, APG, and Unleashing Leadership. So the next one coming up will be this weekend, and I'm running it as a 4-day program, 2 weekends program instead of 3-day program, in order to give participants more experience in the learning itself. So the APG will be coming this coming weekend and next weekend. Unleashing Leadership is in November and December, and Coaching Essentials will be in January. So those are the events with respect to the leadership program. The next one is in June of next year. We're having Coaching Mastery. So the master himself will be here 16 to 24th of June. So Peter, if you want to brush up your skills, you're most welcome to join us here in Malaysia. This will be on the 16th to 24th of June.
Is this the same, sorry, Mazuki, is this the same as the old master practitioner course that was given always? Is it the same?
Not the master practitioner. This is ACMC.
Is this ACMC? Okay.
ACMC,
yeah.
ACMC. So if you want to revise that, then
yes, associate, yeah, ACMC.
Okay, so those are the announcements. It has been a pleasure and honor for me to facilitate this discussion from you. And I really, every time I do this, I am listening to what all of you are saying, and I'm learning as well from that. So thank you very much, everyone. I wish for you good health, and may you stay safe, and may your life prosper. With that, thank you, and hope to see you again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.